Hello. Last time we looked at forgiveness. Today we're going to be looking at understanding as we try to create enough fuel to make it through our current situation. I mentioned a book last time about forgiveness called I Should Forgive But, and it's by a writer named Chuck Lynch. And I got to thinking about a book for children about forgiveness because I know I had a child that's really struggled with this, and maybe some of you do as well, a child that just has a hard time with forgiveness. Well, I wrote a story called Messy Hair Game, and believe it or not, it's a really good little book about teaching forgiveness. Reba's been asked to obey. She chooses not to obey. And when she figures out that grandmother is upset about her decision, she learns what it means to feel conviction and to want to run and to hide. And then she also learns about forgiveness. So it's a good book to bring up discussion with younger children about what it means to seek forgiveness and what it means to give forgiveness. It's called Messy Hair Game, and it's available on Amazon. But today, we're going to look at understanding. And I dare say that through the times that we've been all cooped up together, there may have been some misunderstandings in our household, unless you're living alone, and even then you might get to arguing with yourself. But wherever two people are gathered, there's always a level of understanding and the potential for misunderstanding. And I know Tom and I struggle with this sometimes. We say the very same thing, but we use different words, and we can get so frustrated. And we've never really figured that out. That's probably one of our weakest communication skills right there. But God created each of us as a unique creation with the ability to have language to express ourselves and the capacity then to know each other very intimately. And He knows us intimately as well. Psalm 139 tells us that He knows every word we say, every thought we think, and all of our bones are recorded in His book. And He seeks an understanding relationship with us. In the book of Isaiah, He says, "Come, let us reason together, saith the Lord." He wants us to understand Him, and He wants us to know that He understands us. And through prayer, we're encouraged to share our deepest thoughts and our feelings with Him. In Romans chapter 8 and verse 26 assures us that every groan of our heart is understood, it's interpreted by the Holy Spirit to Him, and we can be ourselves. We don't have to have any pretense when we pray. You know, we really can't fake it with our Creator. In the garden with Adam and Eve, they walked with God in the cool of the garden, and they withheld nothing from Him. But when they sinned, when they disobeyed, immediately shame took over, and they developed that fear of being known, the fear of being found out, and they felt like they needed to hide. When shame is present, you know, we hide too, don't we? We put on masks and we start playing deceptive roles that tear down our relationships, and we try to hide our true feelings. And understanding is one of the things that helps us to get past those kind of things. When our family is built on understanding and love and empowering, the things we're going to talk about later, then we have the fuel that we need to better communicate and to express ourselves. And we know that we'll be listened to and we will be understood. We know we can share our different feelings and our hopes and our dreams without the fear of being scorned or laughed at. And when we fail, we know we can come home and ask for help. We don't have to hide or pretend. We know the family will be gracious, they will forgive, and they will understand. And there's a growing mutuality, a submission, if you will, in love and in the relationships. That means there's a give and take. I understand what you need, and you understand what I need, and we're both willing to give a bit of ourselves in order that those needs might be met, and we thereby understand and value each other. We get that same feeling one toward another. And then understanding comes with time, doesn't it? You know, a new marriage, you take off, and we've got some new marrieds over here, and they're learning each other, figuring out what each other like, what they don't like, what hopes they have in life, what fears they have, and all sorts of things. And marriages grow that way, don't they? As each person peels back a layer of who they are as they grow in trust in their marriage, understanding takes place as you grow along. And it's the same way with a child. A newborn expresses itself with tears and usually screaming. And you understand they either are hungry, they are dirty, or they might need a cuddle. But as they grow, You hope that they will start to use words and not screaming when they want to express themselves. And you start to see their character, and that little person is growing up right there in front of you, and you come to understand how they work and how they think and how they will react. Understanding is absolutely vital for forgiveness and empowering and love. It's actually foundational. It's akin to knowledge and wisdom, and it helps you guide your family. The book of Proverbs repeatedly tells us to seek it, to seek understanding, to seek the fear of the Lord, righteousness and judgment. All these words go together. If you just read the first 4 chapters of Proverbs and see how many times understanding is there, you'll be surprised. And Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7 says, with all thy getting, get understanding. And it's not talking about you figuring things out. It's talking about getting God's opinion. We want to let his opinion become our opinion. Because through those first 4 chapters there in Proverbs, he explains about the good path, the benefits of staying on the path, and the whys that we should stay on the right path. And we need to be teaching these things to our children and living them ourselves, living in understanding and creating understanding by conversation. In our families, understanding is necessary to know who we are as a family. What are our values, our goals, our family rules, if you will. Understanding the how and the why and the what for of our family is what creates unity. You need to take time to instill this in your children and passing it on to them. It's a generational teaching, and it's passing on your faith and passing on your standards, and it makes your family who you are. Remember that forgiveness creates peace in our home, but understanding creates unity. It's that feeling of being part of a unit. The sad thing is that sometimes families have sometimes families have a hard time understanding each other. They have poor communication skills that create an atmosphere of withholding instead of sharing, or fear instead of assured love, or rejection instead of acceptance. And you may have discovered some of these weaknesses in your family while you've been living so closely together. Or maybe this has been a time that God's given you to actually work through some of those things and heal some of those misunderstandings. I thought we'd take a little bit of time to think through some communication skills that will help us while we're here together. The first thing is we must be speaking the truth in love. You know, lying or trying to dodge the truth or ignoring it, just thinking if I just don't look at it, it'll go away, that just doesn't work. We have to speak the truth in love. But that doesn't mean we're to speak the truth no matter how bad it hurts. It means that we're supposed to be speaking the truth in a way that is gracious and helpful. And learning to form our sentences well and think before we speak. It's a real tool to help in being understood and giving understanding when we think about what we say. And use positive words in all situations, even when you're having to speak the truth in love, even when you're having to correct someone. Look for ways to put it positively. And there needs to be a mutual respect and a consideration for each other. That isn't to say that the child is equal to the parent, okay? But it does mean that there should be a respect for each other's dialogue. There should not be a disrespectful attitude or disrespectful words. Should not be calling each other names or blaming or accusing, but putting forth words that respectfully create understanding. There also needs to be the ability of free expression of feelings. You know, sometimes kids just need to tell you how they feel. They might be way off base, but if you will listen first and listen well, you might figure out a sense of where they're coming from and be able to adjust. Again, free expression is not a license for outbursts or disrespect. Honor and self-control are necessary to be understood correctly, and we must be teaching that and showing that to our children. Skillful negotiation skills during a conflict is another tool for understanding. You know, we need to stop when things begin to boil. We need to ask questions and make sure we understand both sides of the argument, and then seek peace and pursue it. Be a peacemaker, not an adjutant. You know, I used to tell my kids, your reaction is your choice. Well, I was trying to teach them their individual responsibility. They could learn self-control and good communication skills, or they could blow their top and receive the consequences. I also encouraged them to be the adult in the situation, especially when they were out with their peers, that they would make choices when they're out there that would be adult-like, that would keep them safe and their friends safe as well. And then to understand then their individual responsibility for their reactions. And listening. Oh, how we need good listeners. You know, a good listener listens. They don't interrupt. They aren't just waiting for you to stop so they can say their bit. They listen, and then they ask questions, and they continue the conversation based on what you've said, creating a flow of understanding. Listening is an amazing skill. You learn so much more, and you understand what makes the other person tick if you just take the time. And it does take time and sometimes patience, but it's well worth it. It pays off. And we must watch our nonverbal cues as well. That's our facial language, our body language. You know, my mother used to have a bad habit. If I wanted to sit and talk with her, usually caught her in the kitchen. I'd sit at the little snack bar and she'd be cooking or whatever, and I'd be talking, and she'd say, uh-huh, 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 uh-huh. That's all she would say. She'd never look me in the eye. She'd never, hardly acknowledge I was there in that sense. And I got to where I just gave up telling her my hopes and dreams, because her body language let me know that she really was not interested in my story or in my thing. And, we can do that. If we look impatient, if we look hurried, if we look agitated or angry, people wonder if we're really listening. So smile and listen and keep the eye contact in the right way. And focus on the intent, not just the content. Kids and some adults have a hard time putting their feelings into words. And sometimes they say it all wrong. So take time to listen to the intent and ask questions so you understand. And showing that interest will help you with your relationship. And then use a bit of humor. A happy family laughs together, but not at each other. They laugh with each other. There's a big, big difference. And use wisdom. Ecclesiastes says, to everything there is a season. There's a time to speak and a time to keep silent. So use wisdom, great wisdom, in your communication skills. We all want to be understood, and most of us try hard to express ourselves to those that are close to us, but sometimes we still find ourselves asking, does anyone understand me? Well, my friend, God is the only one who really understands, and He knows everything, every word, every thought, every motive, every intent of our heart, and He still loves us. And we need to express that same love and understanding to our families. So here's some things to remember. We don't know everything about our family members. We can only see and hear what they express, and it's always colored by our opinions as we take it in. And your family, your child, your spouse does not know everything about you either. So it's unfair to expect them to understand. They're not capable. They don't know what's going on inside of you all the time. And you even have a hard enough time understanding yourself sometimes, right? I know I do. But you know what? God is the understander. God is the one you can talk to about your deepest hurts and your problems and your fears. And I've always found the more I pour my heart out to Him, the calmer and more assured I become. He creates within me a desire and an ability to understand others better, and mostly to see them as people He loves and people He wants me to love. And I do that by seeking to understand them, to serve them in this way. Understanding is service, and it adds fuel to all my relationships, and it will to your family as well. So if you need someone to talk to Him. If you need someone to complain to Him. If you need someone to understand, take yourself to the wonderful counselor and pour your heart out to Him. No one understands like Jesus. He's a friend beyond compare. Meet Him at the throne of mercy. He's waiting for you there. No one understands like Jesus when the days grow dark and grim. No one is so dear, so near as Jesus. Cast your every care on Him. He understands.